And hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into the stream today where we have our round three of the losers bracket to finish off this week's games. Our first matchup here is between Ruthless Raccoons and Resurrection, two old rivals here, Sen and Alexandre, facing off with the sets of Blight, Cenobite, and Mastermind. And then after that game, we're going to have a matchup between Catjam and Silence, where Sir Smunk is finally going to be able to flex his legs here with Plague, Spirit, and Cenobite as the sets. First off, though, focusing on this first matchup, I'm going to introduce my co-caster here, Seabass. What do you think about these sets? Because I think that these quite favor Raccoons. Who do you think is going to take this series?
Ooh, I think yes, I do think they favor raccoons. I think Sen on the Blight is something that not many teams are going to be able to put out, to be honest. That being said, I will not count out Alexandre on both Blight and Mastermind. I think he could play absolutely phenomenal. We saw him get the result against Inception the other night. Was it a 4K1 on the Mastermind, I believe? So playing quite well, and now he's playing against a weaker team, potentially could be getting the same result. But like you said, Sen is very confident on all three of these killers, and overall, I do think they are better picks for Ruthless Raccoon. So I'm really curious to see how it plays out. We see Sen loading in the Ironworks of Misery, of course, the current Blight map. We've seen quite low stages on this map. In games, in scrims, it's been a map that has been shown to be very difficult for Blights to get the 4K on. So I want to talk about the build and see if Sen can potentially 4K. He's choosing to bring Dying Light and Rancor. What do you think of that as a build?
I think Dying Light is an option that probably doesn't get as much credit as it deserves. It's not the strongest perk. It has big problems, like if you chase the Obsession or Decisive Strike player. But in the games that it does get value, it is a pretty significant slowdown to the gens. Rancor, on the other hand, is a bit more of a luck-based perk, I'd say. You're kind of praying that they pop the gens when you need the info, and if they don't, then it's not going to get a lot of value. Sen here playing this safe as we see our first chase onto our Adam Curvin here towards 6. Sen is just content to walk this down, get an M1, and then follow up with a rush for what should be the first down in the trial in roughly 80 seconds into the game here. But there is a pallet to work with, and the Shack pallet still available, which Curvin goes for here, and he does, in fact, not make if Sen converts this, which he does.
Very unfortunate. I was actually really hoping Kevin would do some juicing tonight. I like to call him Kevin. But unfortunately, Sen gets the down in the basement here. That's going to be the first stack of Dying Light. Obviously, a non-obsession survivor makes it very tunnelable for Sen. He's going to be able to build up those stacks of Dying Light. We're still at 5 gens, so no Rancor value just yet. We see an amazing bottom 3 gen. You don't often see that on this map. Usually the top gens are a lot better. But yeah, I think if Sen's... Oh wow, he's actually caught our Claudette.
Such an aggressive save.
But
No, he
Sen's
hasn't
so
caught
far
her
away
out.
from the hook. This could be really...
Yeah, Claudette here just completely sneaks past under Sen's nose and gets an early unhook. I think the Claude could have probably delayed that save a little bit, because I don't think that Sen really saw her.
He could have maybe stealthed out in the basement. That being said, the scratch marks do make it a bit tricky, but we see Kevin blocking Sen, making sure he doesn't make that tree, now trying to run as far as he can from the basement. He didn't make it too far, unfortunately. He's going to have to play this pallet, not a hole. He can do it with the dead
an
coming
amazing
in.
DH.
What an amazing timing. Is this going to be a DS here, potentially? Because if it is, this could last quite a while and waste a lot of time for Sen. He's playing this matchsticks tile. He's playing the weaker window at the moment, but he's just running around, wasting as much time as possible, and Sen's going to be taking that M1 down. Do you reckon we'll see the DS here?
I think it's almost certain. You don't see DH without DS very often, and that is indeed the decisive strike on Curvin. Now, as we were mentioning, that Dying Light will not be doing anything this game if Sen commits to this tunnel, which he has to from this position. Curvin goes down into pallet, but I don't think there's anyone available. No, there is! I need to eat my words, and the blind just about missing there, but this is incredible coordination from Resurrection. We're really putting up an insane fight right now.
Yeah, that was really nice, and that extra 20 seconds or 15 seconds of that board is really nothing at all. And the fact that the survivor didn't give a hit for it, we see Kevin's crawling to the corner. He's kind of forcing this basement hook. He doesn't want Sen to be able to hook elsewhere, which I can understand, but it is still a very strong basement hook. So he's going to take that hook now. Like you said, Dying Light is essentially out of the game. Sen, his best play right now is definitely the tunnel, to tunnel Kevin, who's our obsession. So Dying Light's going to be really tricky to take advantage of. That being said, I could understand trying to go for other survivors, but it's just objectively not as good as going for that tunnel, despite losing Dying Light.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct there. Another issue Sen's having here is that I think the gens the survivors are working are very far away from this basement hook, which is kind of limiting his ability to go for a camp. On the plus side, the generator at 5, which really needs to be getting pushed to attack this bottom side 3-gen, has no progress, which means that if Kervin does die, Sen will have this 3-gen completely intact. Sen now seeing, I believe, Alexandre crossing for this gen, and is going to try and push them off here. We see a hug set coming through, but oh no, he does in fact convert the 5th rush hit, and that is crippling for the survivors. If Quinner is unable to get the pull, and we do see with the Rancor, he is down there just in time.
Yeah, we see the rescue coming, but is Sen going to be able to body block this? This is a situation that's going to be kind of difficult for the survivors of Resurrection to pull off. The Claudette is trying to body block the Blight, but we see a little bit of lack of coordination. It is very difficult to do that on ping as well, so that is an extra disadvantage, but Sen's going to get the down now into Kevin. We have 2 injured survivors across the map. We are at 2 gens, which is quite good. The survivors can guarantee a 4K1 pretty easily. That being said, Sen is going to be able to rush straight out of the basement. The reset coming in is huge for Resurrection right now. Sen wants to try and get any hook he possibly can as quick as possible to start regaining his pressure, but we see the survivors will be fully reset very, very shortly, and we see Quinner is actually stealthed in that bottom side of the map, trying to start pressuring that 8-gen very shortly. I think he was at 8,
This reset is incredibly sensible here. The survivors are fully aware of the fact that they have a 3-gen they need to deal with, and they have no progress on any gens that they'd be sacrificing. Oh, and a whiff coming through from Sen. Alexandre now pathing towards 12 and 1, which means that Remnant and Quinner will be starting to work those bottom side gens. So Sen, what he really needs here, he needs an aggressive and a fast down to prevent any sort of double up or any sort of split on 5 and 8, so that they can start to attack that bottom side 3-gen. But with the amount of time Alexandre is buying here, there is some serious pressure on the 3-gen as an amazing flick comes through.
Yeah, I didn't think Sen would actually play that pallet, but it ends up working out after a little bit. He got the tag. I think that might have been a lucky break. I didn't exactly see where Alexandre went, but now we're rushing to the bottom side of the map. Absolutely no pressure on these gens. The 3-gen is intact. I think it's going to be impossible to break, Doug. They managed to get the reset, and still, even then, they've got 0 pressure on these gens. If I were the survivors, I would very carefully make sure that you can pop that top gen at the top of the map. Have everyone reset, and have one guy do the 11 gen while the other 2 stealth. And if the Blight commits to the 11 person, the 2 survivors can work those bottom gens.
This is about 50 though, which tells us that Quinner is stealthing somewhere nearby with Sprint Burst. Probably not the person you want to look for, but if Sen is unable to find Quinner and Alexandre gets pressure on that 12 gen, then Sen will be in a much weaker position to play this game out. So what he really needs is he needs to either find Quinner or get an incredibly quick down on Alexandre and Remnant. Sen agreeing now is going to go towards 12 and try and get a snipe on Alexandre, who I imagine would have just pre-left to the 1 corner here.
It seems that probably resetting, they might have actually started to reset it at 1, I'm not sure. We don't see Alexandre here, but we did see any survivor at 11. Quinn is probably back on that gen at 8, which would have a little bit of pressure. I saw a survivor there, but I don't know who. Kind of getting in the way a little bit. Alive, I did not expect that at all, to be honest. Remnant taking the down now at main. Sen seems like he wants to slug this, and I think that's very sensible. He wants to stop that gen at 8 from popping. We could potentially even be seeing a double here. And this could be very scary for Resurrection, as we could be seeing a 4K2 if he finds Quinner, who's stealthed around with Sprint Burst. Sprint Burst not actually at the ready just yet, though.
Quinner is way too far away here. I think that even without Sprint Burst, you're not going to find him online there. Sen knowing this, knowing that the gen's only about 50, if it was 70 or 80, he'd need to be a lot more worried. He now has the time to get his 4th hook of the game and get Remnant on that hook on main in order to give, no, not going for main, going for 6, deep in the 3-gen, to get access to that Pop Goes the Weasel kick, which now means if Quinner stops their aggression on 8, it's going to take a big hit.
Yeah, absolutely, and Sen actually can play for the 4K2 now, given the way the survivors are playing. I do think it's risky that the survivors are playing this way, but it could end up becoming a 4K0 if they have a few good chases, given that they're pushing both 8 and 11 at the same time. Sen's now going to pop 8, so all the bottom pressure now has just diminished entirely, and this could be really tricky if Sen manages to find Quinner, which, once again, he has no idea where he's stealth. Can we have a... Oh, he's very close, actually, to the Blight. He does have Sprint Burst up. Can we see where Alexandre is?
I imagine Alexandre is working that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You've got to be working this 12 gen to get pressure for the camp. This puts Sen in a position which is more than likely 4K1. Sen committing topside. If Alexandre is not going to get hit here, which I think he may still get hit, just about, no, getting the pallet down. But this means Quinner can get the save and get the full heal on Remnant with Will Make It. And then they will have 2 healthy players bottom side, but in exchange, no, Sen not going to allow the Will Make It here. Sensible decision to go back and keep Remnant injured, keep the survivors on their toes.
Yeah, but now Alexander is going to get back on that 11 gen. That could get a lot of pressure, and this chase is actually going to determine how much they can get on that 11 gen. If Quinn is able to last long here, that's going to allow Alexander to pop. Remnant might actually even be on the 8 gen. It would be a risky play. Blight might be leaving. No, he's committing still to Quinn on this short wall. Seems like that's going to be a tag right there. Quinn is choosing to stay here. That's really good because it's far away from both of his gens. Sen just breaking the pallet, and Quinn just once again sticking to the short wall. We see Sen leading the chase actually.
Again, just a good decision there. I think that you know there's a lot of progress on 11. You know Remnant is probably working 8, and you want to stop at least one of these gens. And with everyone injured, the next chase on Alexandre here should be fast. The huge danger here is if Remnant has been working 8, then a double up between Remnant and Quinna would be able to pop it, which I think, yeah, we see Quinna playing super aggressive for this, maybe too aggressive, as this could be the down on the gen on 8, which it is with an incredible flick around this debris.
Yeah, I just want to see what the pressure is on 8 right now, though. It seems like it's got quite a bit going. Alexandre might still be able to pressure 11 right now. If I was Sen, I would honestly slug this to check 11 first. If you catch Alexandre there, you could essentially win the game and get a 4k2. But this hook is still in a good position. He can pop that gen at 8, and then he can go check over at 11. I wonder what Remnant is doing right now. If he's going to start pushing that gen at the water tower, or... Oh no, stealthing in the basement. So the survivors, I guess, are playing for potentially some kind of slow endgame where they play for the gates or maybe a bleed out. But it seems like
Remnant is going for Kervin's medkit. I think that's the play that they're making here, so they can get a reset on Remnant. And then if Sen looks for that reset, Alexandre is going to get on this really high progress gen on 12. I reckon that Remnant now will be healing themselves in the basement so that they can then go for the save on Quinna, or alternatively just give the second stage and start working a gen like 5.
Yeah, there we go. So like you said, the reset has come in the basement. Sen probably would just force second stage here. The problem with this plan, I think, is that Alexandre was playing very passively for 11 while Remnant was getting reset, which means the progress on 11 isn't too much. We've actually caught out Remnant as well, and Sen can definitely commit to this chase because he knows that 11 is quite low, and he's going to force second on Quinna, and then he can go back to 11. So really, he has the game in control right now. I think if the survivors hadn't gone for this kind of strategy, they could have potentially popped one gen, but now it seems that he could 4k 2 with all the survivors being injured.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Mia made a mistake showing herself. She could have played much more passively in the basement, and there would have been a stronger position for the survivors to play from. Sen now is going to chase Alexandre with one more rush, unfortunately missing the bump on the tree. Alexandre is going to get away again, and Quinna will be saved. This gen, though, is about 90%. I don't think that there's any world in which Sen can realistically hold on to a 4k2, unless he goes for a quick rush on Alexandre, which is so risky here.
Yeah, it just depends on how the survivors position themselves here. If they do it very carefully, I do agree they will be able to pop that 11 gen. But Sen has actually caught out Remnant in a pretty weak position. A quick down, this could lead to a hook and a pop of 11. But I'm not sure if he actually has the time as he is slugging. He's going immediately back to 11. Alexandre could be wrapping that gen. We actually see a crow in the distance, and Alexandre actually popping the gen. Both the survivors there, so they've confirmed the 4k1 here, which is quite impressive considering how things could have gone there. As at the very least, they've made sure that a 4k1 will be a tie for their Blight player.
What Sen needs to be careful about is the unbreakable on Quinna here. We know that he has it. We know it's likely not used here. And in fact, we know it's not used here. And now with Sen going for this flick on Alexandre and missing, this is going to buy Quinna time to unbreakable, get a pickup on Remnant, and maybe start attacking the gens again, or playing for an exit gate or hatch scenario here, which I think is the most likely play.
Yeah, Sen gonna force the drop down on Alexandre. We're seeing really good bump logic that is just absolutely a down no matter what. But the unbreak coming in now onto Quinna. Sen is gonna slug, try and catch him out. He knows exactly where he left him, so I don't think... Oh, he actually has the time to pick up Remnant, which is crazy. Sen deciding to just go back and hook Alexandre in his 3-gen. But let's be realistic at this point. There's nothing better than a 4k1 that our survivors from Resurrection can do. Sen could miss 100 rushes and still win this game just on the basis of having a 3-gen and 3 injured survivors and all the pallets in these gens gone. The only thing that could seriously go wrong for Sen is if they were to go for an exit gate play, in my opinion, or a bleed out.
Yeah, that's the survivor's only option, but even then it would not be a huge swing of points here. We know Alexandre, our last fresh, has just been hooked. There are only 3 stages between the other remaining survivors. If one of these guys gets out the door, it would be a big swing. It would mean that a 4k0 would be a win for Resurrection on the killer, but I don't think that Sen has any reason to allow that. Having known that both the survivors are injured, his gens are intact, and having known that the survivors made the classic mistake in comp of not identifying that strong 3-gen and getting rid of it earlier, he's in a position where he doesn't really need to care what they do.
Yeah, I do want to say earlier, I actually take back what I said earlier when Kevin hit his DS and they had the pallet save and he ran back in the corner. I saw that as being like a few seconds wasted, but realistically, giving him that second basement hook allowed him to take control of these gens. And I also assumed at the time they'd be on that water tower gen, but they didn't get onto it early enough. So I think in hindsight, it would have been better after the pallet save for him to run more up towards 8 and deny that basement hook to kind of force Sen to stop being able to play for those bottom gens. That being said, you know, what can you really do? It is a very high mobility killer. You can't really get that far away from the gens you need to when you're injured. So
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think that was the crucial moment where the game swung into Sen's favor. With the initial basement save and the DS, it was looking bad, but with Kervin just running towards the bottom side, giving such a strong position for Sen to play from, it was just incredibly difficult to come back. We see the inner strength onto Remnant here. Quinn is still stealthing somewhere on the edge map. And now the survivors are just going to need to let Alexandre die. But no, this is so aggressive. This is a mistake here because now you're going to end up in an endgame with one survivor down instead of two survivors both up here. And with Quinna getting hooked, now Sen will be able to just go for it. I spoke too soon. We see the second wind on Alexandre. There is still maybe something to play for here, Seabass.
potentially, so this isn't the death on Quinn, is it? That's the second hook. Oh no, it is the death actually. But we will be seeing two healthy survivors very shortly, like you said. So those two survivors could split these gens. Once again, I do think this is completely unplayable though, as they could just slowly
I agree.
chip
It's
away
going to be an
at those gens.
situation. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because here, Remnant is on first hook, Alexandre is on death hook here. So what the survivors need to do, they need to just sacrifice Alexandre, have him on a generator, and then go for an exit gates win with Remnant, which is much easier said than done. I'm sure everyone will agree.
It will be quite difficult because usually the strategy is when you want to get the death hook person slugged, you want to have them push a gen far away from hatch so the killer can't pick them, because that would open the hatch immediately. But the problem is all these gens are near hatch, so if Alexandre pushes any of those gens, Sen could just kill him and then immediately shut the hatch. But that being said, I'm not sure what the gates look like. He could actually do that, and Remnant could be stealthing at one of the gates. Really just depends how far they are from each other.
Yeah, if the gates are far apart, then they could force a potential 50-50 through the exit gates, which is, I think, the best play that they have to go for here. But if the gates are too close together, there's no world in which the survivors can get out. It really depends on where those gates are, what sort of RNG we're working with. But the survivors, I think, can tend to just stealth this out a little bit to get themselves into the perfect position from which to do a play like this. Sen just searching around for them. I imagine there might be Alexandre working that water tower gen as we're speaking. I'm not exactly sure. No, I don't think Sen sees any progress here. And we're probably just going to see a pretty slow 2v1.
With their team and trying to figure out what their best plan of action is. But we've seen Remnant actually caught out in quite a bad position with no pallets at his disposal. That's going to be a tag on the 5th rush. We see Remnant now is going to run towards that midsection of the map. Sen can absolutely just commit here. There's not that much of a risk in committing, to be honest. Even if he does down him, you can always slug and look for Alexandre. We see the down now onto Remnant, and Sen is opting to slug just to be perfectly safe. He doesn't want to risk Remnant die on hook and then Alex playing for one of the gates.
No, Remnant is not our death hook. Remnants would be unable to die on the hook there, but even then, the slug is still
he
the
could
best decision.
miss skill checks.
Yeah. He could miss skill checks, but that takes much longer. And plus, even with where Remnants died, there's no chance of the hatch being lost here for Sen. The real danger would be the exit gates, like you mentioned, right? The fact that these gates, Sen is maybe just going to check where they are now. We don't see one at 11, but we do see some scratch marks. And this is Alexandre, an amazing flick there coming over the logs. And this should be wrapping up the game right now.
Absolutely. Hopefully we see some juicing from Alex here. He's on one of these loops that's a little bit difficult for the Blight to play. That being said, Sen absolutely knows how to play it. Gets the very quick decisive down onto Alexandre, and that's going to be the 4K1. I wonder if Alexandre is going to be able to compare with this result. I do think he's a very impressive, very confident Blight. That being said, it's a challenging result to contend with, especially the survivors from Ruthless Raccoons. It really depends who's on the roster, but I think a lot of those survivors tend to 1v1 Blight a lot. Oh, we see the Adrenaline actually on Remnant.
There is hope here, but Sen just going to check the closest door first. I think, yeah, no, we don't see any lights there. Sen immediately going towards 12, maybe to try and contest that other gate. But I think Remnant is playing this one slow. Still has the medkit available, still has the inner strength. Would you be healing up here? No, there's no time, surely.
Oh, I think you might have the time for one heal if you start the heal straight away. Oh, he has really good line of sight actually. If
Yeah.
he's going too close to this door though. I'm not sure what's happening. But that's interesting that we have Adren and Unbreak on the same build. That is a very like
No, Quinna was
minute,
unbreakable.
you know. Oh, okay, Quinna was unbreakable. You are correct. I remember it
But
being
even
Remnant.
so here, the Adrenaline, I doubt will come in clutch. These gates are just too close. Even though they are quite split, it is a Blight, and as you said, the line of sight between these doors is very much in Sen's favor.
Yeah, I'm not sure Remnant's going to be able to do much. The best play is definitely to get that door up to 19%, and then the second Sen leaves to get back on it, whichever it may be. That actually, with Resilience, could make things very close here. I'm not sure. Does he have Resilience? Can we actually have a look at Remnant? I want to see what he's doing at the moment. Stealthing at a tree hasn't. He definitely doesn't have time to get on the gate.
Yeah, there is no way. There's not enough for a heal, there's no time to go for an inner strength totem, and even now if he gets on the door straight away, it is just going to be the sacrifice to the endgame collapse. No, it's the 12 gate actually, and I think Sen is fully aware at this point that Remnant has no time to make a play for the door.
Yeah. Definitely. Does he have the gate prepared? No, he doesn't even have it prepared yet.
Yeah,
this
even if he stays on it for the full time,
and
yeah,
sends
he's gonna
immediately
make it.
here. Yeah. But
Sen
does he
doesn't
catch
even
him?
need to kill him.
Probably not. Yeah.
No, we'll see
Yeah,
the timer gaming. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, very nice game to watch. Sen demonstrated his mechanics quite well. At the end of the day, it came down to that bottom 3-gen, and I think if the strategy had been a little bit different from the survivors, given how well they played that in the end game, that was like really impressive, being able to pop that last gen, get their resets going, and you know, kind of fight back a little bit and have the chance of breaking that final gen. But yeah, we'll move to intermission, and we'll be seeing Alexandre on the Blight shortly. And welcome back in, ladies and gents. We just saw a very delightful Blight game where Sen had some incredible bump logic, played a lot of dropped pallets, which was very impressive, including that one on the main building on Alexandre where he baited him with those rushes and got that flick as he vaulted. That was really nice to see. That being said, Resurrection played their macro very well and were able to make a little comeback at the end with some good resets and stealths and pushing some interesting gens. So the 4K won, and now we'll be seeing Alexandre on the same map, the Ironworks of Misery. Quite a challenging Blight map, at least when you compare it to the maps he's commonly played on, like Suffo, ARP, or Cole. So I'm curious to see how he's going to be able to perform.
Yeah, we see one build adjustment here between Alexandre and Sen. Alexandre actually going for the Call of Brine, a perk that you very rarely see in competitive play after its nerf somewhat recently here, from 200% down to 125% of the base regression there. So Alexandre picking something a little bit more unorthodox, but given that in Sen's game, Dying Light and Rancor both didn't do anything really, I think it's potentially an adjustment that could pay out here as the first whiff comes through onto Key.
Yeah, I don't think I've actually seen this perk in comp in a very long time, but that being said, it's not a terrible perk. Although I do think personally there are some better options. I think it could get him some good value with a 3-gen, and that's exactly what he needs to tie this game, is to play a 3-gen. Really nice hit coming out onto Key. Only 2 rushes were used there. We see potentially a lucky break there. Key running the shack now. It looks like Alexandre is going to be able to get a pretty quick down once he rushes in here. Don't think there's a lot he's going to be able to do. Oh, did he corner? He corner
That's the lucky break, 100%. No, that's the lucky break, yeah. Key perhaps corner teching, using the lucky break to its full potential, but I don't think he'll make this pallet on the ping, and that is the first down of the trial. A little bit faster than Sen's, but in a much better location, I think.
And no pallet save. I heard the progress on that gen, and I thought someone would be ready for a pallet save, but no. Alex is hooking the top mid portion of the map. We have better gens in the top right area, so Alex is going to immediately rush there, try and pop these gens, and potentially play these top gens rather than tunneling Key. I'm curious what he's going to decide to do. He has 2 options here. He can play this 3-gen, that's the tightest 3-gen on the map, or he can go for the tunnel, but given the early save from the survivors, they've made the decision for him, and now there's absolutely no choice but to tunnel Key.
Yeah, the tunnel is absolutely the correct decision. If you ever have an early unhook like this, instead of the survivors just sitting back and getting some gens done, the tunnel is by far the much better option. But something to note is that with the lucky break, it's going to be pretty difficult to track Key down here. I don't think that Alexandre has any idea where Key is went, as he just goes for the down onto Sane.
Yeah, he does get that down quite quickly though, and he can hook at this shallow 10 hook that'll be somewhat close to the gens. The Rancor actually giving very good value. We saw all of the 3 gens now broken, but Alex does know where all 3 survivors are. He knows where the reset is going to be at that Pops gen. So if I were him, I'd rush to that Pop gen and try and find Key before he can get reset.
Yeah, we see some blood here. This has got to be Key, probably staying in this 4-lane tile. No, we see Sen here, maybe going for an assist, but Key just by himself here, trying to play as best as possible. We know there's no decisive strike because Key was doubling that generator with Sen, and now we do see the hit coming through after a little bit of a weird collision moment there with Key in the barrel, and that is going to be the 3rd stage of the trial, and more importantly, our 2nd stage onto Key.
Yeah, and despite the fact that Alex has lost his 3-gen, I still think he's well and truly in the game here with that 2nd stage onto Key and the injure onto Sane. He just needs to get a little bit of pressure across the map, maybe a pop, maybe a tag before he camps this out to death, in my opinion. If he were to camp this with the gens being as split as they are, the survivors could do a lot of damage. He has found Dan, but choosing not to commit. He's actually rushing towards 1, probably assuming there's a survivor here, and he has located Sane, getting the immediate down. It might actually just be worth slaking here rather than picking this and returning to Sen, but Alex is going to go for the pick. The Key, the unhook onto Key right now from Sen. This is quite scary for him. The FTP even coming in as well. I was going to say lucky break is going to save Key, but no, the FTP on top of that is going to make it really hard to tunnel. So Alex might be going to tunnel Sane instead as being a better option right now.
I think that Sane is most definitely the better option with Key now healthy and with Sen injured. But the problem is, look at Alexandre's gens and look at where the hook is. The generators are so far away from where Alexandre needs to be pressuring, and the survivors know it here. We see Dan playing quite aggressively for this. This is going to be the tag. No! Just about missing there. Incredibly well played from Dan, who's now going to be playing this pallet gym, which I believe was used earlier in the trial, so this will still be the hit coming through. But the problem now is that both Sane and Key are going to be difficult to tunnel because of the distance Alexandre has between himself and them.
Yeah, Alex returning through the right side of the map. We see a crow kind of indicating that they've probably run towards 11, but we don't see anyone actually that will make it reset onto Sane. So he must be very close by. We have found Sen. Sane must be a few seconds away. I think Alex needs to abandon Sen right now and try and check that TNL tile, which is probably where Sane is after being reset there. He does get, oh, he doesn't actually even get the down on Sen here.
Sen playing this as well as possible, given that there's basically nothing to work with here. Alexandre does go for a rush, and this should be the conversion. Yep, there is the conversion, and probably our 5th stage of the trial. We have Key and Sane both on death hook. Dan very much safe, who has already been reset by the other survivors after the tag on 8. And now the survivors they are in a position to start getting gen pressure on the board. With everyone healthy, with Sen a fresh hook, just getting on the hook here, the survivors now need to start attacking the gens much faster than they are. We do see one of those popping. We see a double there from Rancor and the pull coming through. And now Alexandre needs to look towards an elimination.
So I think what happened is Dan and Key reset together and Sane got will make it healed by Sen. So he would have been a few seconds away from Sen. And if Alex had realized that, he could have actually just slugged or not even chased Sen and tried to find Sane. When we saw that Rancor proc, we saw Sane was actually right near Sen and ready to get that insta-save as well. So really unfortunate. He now is in a position with 4 healthy survivors. He still has 2 on death hook. He's found Sen here, but not the survivor he wants. I think wasting any time chasing Sen right now is just absolutely pointless. He needs to find either Sane or Key, and he needs them immediately, and he needs to get incredibly quick chases. We see the call of Brian indicating that one of the survivors has hit a skill check on that gen at 8. Alex needs to leave this immediately, and he is opting to rush towards 9, but we have that hill gen. We do find Key, so if he gets a quick tag and potentially a down, this could actually be exactly what Alex needs to get back in the game.
Unfortunately for Alex, I think the pace of the game is far too much against him. Unlike Sen, who at this position had an elimination and a 3-gen still on the board, Alexandre's gens are far more split. We see 2 gens on the top right and 2 gens on the top left. And now with Key going down, yes, you're going to get an elimination, but there is too much progress on 9, and the gen split is just not favorable enough for me to see this ending in a 4K.
I do agree. It's going to be very challenging for Alexandre, especially if our survivors here play their gens correctly and pre-live One of the big mistakes we saw there is that Key did not pre-leave early enough. It might have been a late com from Sen when he was getting chased on main, but Key did get caught out in a bad position when he was working that 9 gen. So if the survivors don't make that mistake again and they com effectively and split 2 of these gens at a time, this should be a very easy 4K0 at the very minimum.
Yeah, look at the pre-lead from Sane here, playing it exactly the way Quinna did. Very sensible decision. Now the rush comes through on Descent. Just being liberal with the pallet. You see the cooler Brian. You know that Dan now is working that hill gen, which has got to be about 80% after the pop. Alexandre instead opting to give it up to try and catch Sane out of position, but Sane with the sprint burst is not going to be caught so easily.
Yeah, so he does end up using that sprint burst. Alex is going to get the tag with his rushes there. Sane running into main. I would commit if I were him, as potentially you could get that down before both gens pop, but Alex actually catching Sen, wrapping for that gen, might convert into a tag, doesn't, barely misses. Alex is going to continue to chase Sen, gets stunned, unfortunately, as your boy Q would say, get stunned, stupid, and now he's committing to send another pallet that he needed to get out of the way earlier. Has to break now. We saw 9 pop in the distance. He has no choice but to commit right now. If he leaves Sen, Sen will go complete that gen at 1.
No, he is indeed going to leave Sen, though. I think that Sane will probably play safe and just get a heal off. We do indeed see the reset, and now the survivors can start to attack this 10 gen and the gen at 1 as well. Yeah, ooh, an amazing firecracker there from, I believe that was Dan. But Alexandre still converting the rush. Incredibly impressive Blight mechanics there. And now opting to leave the chase and go check on that corner gen on 1, which he knows has a concerning amount of progress right now.
Yeah, 1 is significantly more concerning than that gen at 10. Alex rushing over and the gen has been completed. That's the first set that's going to be going towards the Ruthless Raccoons. That was, of course, their pick, so it is the most expected for them to win that pick. That being said, I think Resurrection put up a very strong fight, and there were several moments here where I thought Alex was going to be able to get that 4K1.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of opportunities for that, but with leaving the tunnel on Key, and then also being unable to kill Sane early enough into the trial, both the options to get an elimination were unavailable. Now Sen is just going to do his best to buy as much remaining time as possible. This is looking like a 2K8, with Dan and Sane both making it out this exit gate.
And we see Sen continue to grade the pallet, barely missing the swing, even on ping, and still missing the hit, unfortunately. Alex is going to continue to try and play it, giving Sen the pallet once, time and time again. We see these crazy mind games coming in from Alexandre, and finally getting the down. Sen is, however, on the pallet, so I wonder if our survivors will go for a pallet save just for the, surely just for the sake of it, no? No,
I don't think so.
not.
The survivors are going to take the outs. That is going to be an 8-stage, 3 fresh result for Alexandre. Definitely respectable on Ironworks, but I think that the survivors were always in control of this game after the tunnel out on Key was dropped. And I think that since then, Alexandre was playing catch-up. So congratulations for winning the first set here, Ruthless Raccoons. But you are now going to be going into Resurrection's home territory, the Cenobite pick, on the Wrecker's Yard. So who do you think this really favors? I think that this is Resurrection's chance to get back into this series.
Yeah, I think this is a bit of a toss-up, I'm not going to lie. I could see both teams performing very well here. What I'm expecting most of all is probably some strong survivor performances on both sides. Hopefully no 4K1s. We've seen that too much on Cenobite, and you just don't want to see it. You want to see survivors play well on a kill like this. So we'll have to see how it goes after a little break.
And welcome back in, everybody. We just had a short intermission, and now we are going into a Wrecker's Yard Cenobite set picked by Resurrection as an attempt to equalize this series against Ruthless Raccoons. We're going to be seeing Ruthless on the Survivor and Irish Bidan on the Killer here, probably running something fairly orthodox, fairly safe in order to try and get a nice win condition for his team to win this set and take the series to a 1-1 tiebreaker. DBOS here, we're going to be loading in, and we're going to be seeing that our killer has gone with something somewhat interesting here. We're now actually spectating Sen, but we're going to tell you very shortly what our killer is going to be running. And there we go, yeah, very standard except for the agitation. What do you think of that pick?
Perfect build. If you're trying to go for a 4K1, amazing. If you're a little bit concerned about not reaching that 4K1, I would take off one of those perks and bring Noid. That being said, it really just depends how well Irish is going to do and chase a really quick hit onto Dan. Personally, this is one of my favorite killers in comp DBD, and especially on this map, I think Cenobite is amazing to watch and to play. Irish getting that chain, unfortunately not converting to a hit. Dan gonna greed this pallet, but unfortunately does get mind game. Irish gets it down and actually picks up off the pallet, so there's no chance of a pallet save here, even if his teammates are ready for it. Irish is gonna use his agitation. I would actually go for the basement hook here, but that being said, it seems he's going to be going for a Scourge hook around the shallow 3 area instead, and Sen has been caught out very close to the hook. He could actually try and get a quick tag onto Sen.
Yeah, this start was just brutal for the survivors. With Dan zoning himself by vaulting that window towards the outside of the map, Irish was able to get an extremely fast follow-up down here on 12. And now the survivors have basically no gen pressure on the board in exchange for a stage on Dan. Which means that if Irish is able to keep up the pressure and play aggressively, this is going to be a very high stage result as we see an amazing snipe onto Sane.
Yeah, I want to talk about these add-ons real quick. The Torture Pillar, not one of my personal favorites when it comes to the Cenobite. I do understand the idea of speeding up the box. Has some kind of good idea in theory, but that being said, it's so insignificant when you look at the total time that it takes, and I don't think it will actually have any practical impact on the game. Except maybe speeding the chains up and prompting the survivors to do the box a little bit earlier. But yeah, Irish choosing to 4 seconds Sen, wasting a bit of time hovering around for save, despite Irish going for the camp here. He might actually just commit for a chase onto Sen to try and get a tag after Dan does hit second.
That is an incredibly early second stage nonetheless, though. Interesting that you do decide to mention the Torture Pillar there, because it's 6 seconds over a number that is usually 90, plus a 45-second respawn on the box. I think, as you said, it's pretty negligible, and you'll still get the same amount of chain hunts in a game as you would usually. We do see Sane doing the box, and now the survivors are in a position where, yeah, we're aware that we see, I think, Key working that gen on 6, and Sen and Sane are going to have to go for a double save here, because if Dan dies at 5 gens, or maybe 4 gens remaining, there's no chance the survivors will get out.
No, so they're just allowing him to die.
Oh,
But
the
wait, can we
anti-cam.
return to Dan? The Kobe is ready, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the anti-camp is fully
Yeah.
charged here on Dan, which means that Dan is just going to be saving this for as long as possible and then 4%ing at the last second, which is going to be pretty disastrous for Irish, because instead of getting the 2 tags from the double
Oh, but
save,
the chain!
yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. He can body block the BT hit and just get the... No.
Oh, just about unlucky there. A
couldn't block
really
the
good
window.
attempt there from Irish.
Absolutely. But the survivors choosing to just all split these gens across the map while Dan had his Kobe at the ready is going to be completely detrimental to Irish. Almost getting that tag there, but deciding not to go for the swing, and he's still going to commit. Now, misses a chain on the short wall. Dan going to go for a safe pre-drop. I think I can see these gens getting hammered away in the distance. So what is the lesson here? At the end of the day, Irish was camping too close to the hook. And really, what you need to think about as killer is when the survivor has 2 hook stages that you're camping, that hook bar is just going to slowly, progressively build up. So if you can force second and leave and force the survivors to unhook themselves, it's usually a lot better than risking a situation like this.
Yeah, Key perhaps not paying attention there. We see maybe a fake out. I think Key was in the locker and hopped out. Irish now checking it. But yeah, giving a fairly free tag. Despite this, I don't think it really matters, because Dan has now had so much distance that the survivors will really be able to get some gen pressure on the board. The one saving grace for Irish here is that chain hunt, which is charging up very quickly now and could allow him a much needed rest from the gen pressure and the healing of the survivors.
Yeah, maybe the Torture Pillar might make a few seconds of a difference here when we take into account this chase and the chain hunt activating 6 seconds earlier. Maybe not, I guess, because same is on the box anyway. We do catch Dan out. I don't think Irish is going to be able to get the down on Dan quick enough for it to make a difference. If I were him personally, I would cut my losses and I'd go for Key to cycle a few Scourge hooks and get a safe result with multiple fresh hooks at the end of the day. But it looks like he will be getting a down on Dan shortly unless the survivors get a lot of bodies. And a head-on coming in from, I think, Key there? I'm not too sure, actually.
Yeah, that was Key, and that just gives Dan so much distance to get towards this bottom side of the map. Yep, Irish just deciding to drop the chase and go for Key, which I think, given the amount of resources the survivors committed to defend Dan, is very much a sensible decision from our killer. If you commit all the way to that bottom side of the map, then you are going to be losing all the rest of your gens. Very sensible from Irish, an incredibly good decision. And now with Key taking the down, this will be the second Scourge hook and the second fresh hook of the game. But with Sen getting reset, Dan will probably be shortly after.
Yeah, no sloppy does allow the survivors to really effectively use their healing perks like solidarity and empathic and resilience to kind of multiply their heals, double heal together, and get everyone healthy. That's exactly what we're seeing right now. He does have access to a Scourge Hook there, which has hit one of the gens across the map. He's now located Sen on this gen with quite a bit of pressure. He's going to pop the gen first and then choose to engage in a chase with Sen, who's not in the best position, actually, considering that pre-run, but Irish choosing to return to the hook anyway and potentially go for that tunnel now onto Key.
We do see Key heading towards 6 here. Towards the back side of the map, probably the right place to run. But with not much to work with, no, we do have one pretty strong pallet here. You've got to play patient here. Key deciding to drop it. It is going to get broken, and this is going to be the 4th stage, and this still on 2 fresh hits here. But with the whiff coming through, he is going to be buying a lot of time. The Torture Pillar is actually getting a lot more value than I would have anticipated here. But I still think that overall, you would be much better off going with maybe a casting distance add-on to try and go for some box defense later in the game.
Absolutely. Frank's Heart is completely goated. It is the best add-on in the game, no question. Irish now getting the 2nd hook onto Key. The box about to activate very, very shortly. I wonder if...
Never mind.
I didn't realize it was actually there, to be honest. I had the stream volume too low, I couldn't hear it. But Irish walking up this middle side of the map, he needs to go for fresh hooks right now, get that pain res, and potentially slow down the game. We found Sen, who is a fresh hook, and we have the chains harassing him right now. This could be a great survivor to choose to chase. Irish is a little bit hesitant. He wants to kind of look at these gens, especially the one over at 3, and engage and chase one of those survivors. We see Sane, actually, who is another fresh survivor, who's been caught out in a much worse position than where Sen was. But the question is, will Irish be able to down Sane quick enough before they pop that final gen?
I don't think that that's really a possibility here. There is too much support available for Sane, even with the weak position he's in. You have 3 healthy players who could theoretically come in and block, and I imagine one of these players will be coming in to help Key out on this tile. Irish breaking this pallet, and now they're going to be aiming for an endgame. They know that there's no Noed available. Actually, I don't think they do, because Irish has not utilized the pop kick, so maybe they would be worried about the Noed, and maybe they, as a result of that, decide not to support Key here, which I think is the decision that they're going to make.
This could go quite terribly for Irish, choosing to commit to Key. If they double that gen at 9, and if they pop it... not 9, sorry, is it 11? Yeah, if they pop that in time before he can get back, this could be a 5-stage result. That being said, if he gets that last fresh, he will be able to get an impressive 8-stage 3 fresh result, which is exactly what he needs to set a good win condition that his survivors are going to be able to take care of. Now approaching this 11 gen, popping right in his face, and it's Dan DVD, the only player that he doesn't want to chase right now. Not because Dan is the GOAT, that being said, Dan is the GOAT, but because he is on Death Hook, and Irish needs the stages to be able to get a better result. We've located Sane actually around the shack. I don't know if Irish spotted him, but I saw Sane running around in circles. But no matter what, if Dan gets back on that gate at 11 with a body block, Sane is going to be able to get both of the gates there, and Irish, I think, knows right now he needs to just go for Dan. That's the only survivor he could down. I still think Dan's going to be able to get out here, though.
At this point, Irish would be incredibly lucky to get any downs at this point in the game, because with Dan being healthy, oh, and an amazing vault there coming through, all Dan needs to do is take a hit, run towards the shack, and he will have 2 people available to block for him. Irish now knowing, no, the survivor's actually leaving and opening up the potential possibility of a hatch escape here, which I think Irish is going to be completely unable to defend. An amazing cracker coming through from Dan here, and now Dan is just looking for his moment to run for the hatch or the exit gate.
Realistically, Irish could just sit here and just continuously chain Dan and body block the hatch from him. We see the vault coming in. Yeah, we don't want to get the hit as he'll use that speed burst. We gotta get hatch. He does get the hit while he's chained, but he breaks the chains immediately. So now Irish needs to hit one more chain to stop Dan from making the hatch. He does hit the chain.
Dan won't make this. I think this is a huge mistake from Dan and the survivors. The survivors could have easily played it, just stayed in and played for a hit. And Dan could have also probably made that hatch if he just committed for it. But instead, standing still, losing some crucial distance. I think that this is a very easy stage being given up by the survivors here. And Irish should be able to get a 2k6 from this position.
Absolutely. Still, that being said, a 2k6 result might be a little bit lower than what you'd aim for with Cenobite. But I would say, considering how rough of a mid-game Irish had, this is an excusable end game that kind of wraps things up a little bit. I still think committing to Key was a huge mistake. If he had set his eyes on one of those fresh survivors immediately, he could have gotten that down and hooked them far away from the gates and confirmed his 3rd fresh and getting a def, so an extra 3 stages rather than 2, and obviously those fresh points as well. But the 6 stage 2 result is something that's beatable if the survivors from Resurrection play phenomenally well. So I'm curious to see if Sen is going to be able to compete with this result. He might be taking perks like Noed to help him in the end game and just go for fresh hooks. We'll have to see how he plays after a quick break. All right, welcome back, folks. We're going to be seeing our man Cenobite DBD on the Cenobite here. He's going to be taking on the survivors from Resurrection, including my favorite Alexandre and of course the star Kevin. I want to see how these guys perform against Sen. We also have Quino once again and Remnants, the exact same roster that we saw on the Blight. Sen spawning in on the 6th section of the map. That indicates to him that the survivors spawn top. He's going to try and locate the box based on that spawn. So he's checking the right side, assuming that the survivors spawned at 11. He's going to look for that box around 3 or 4. Hasn't been able to locate it just yet. Still searching around the bus. What do we think of this build? I think it's personally quite a lot safer. We saw that Irish was running a lot of slowdowns with Pop and Agi, and he didn't get as much value out of those as he wasn't able to get as many downs as he would have needed. But Sen instead is going to go for Noed, which helps him secure that win con, and also Sloppy, which is going to prevent the survivors from being able to endlessly take hits to deny stages. So I really like this build. I could not think of anything better to run personally with this win con. Sen has located Kevin with the box at 10. The problem is that you're chasing Kevin and he is going to put up a fight. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, of course you want to chase the player with the box to the start. That's ideally what you want. But with 2 chain misses now coming through, Sen just opting to break the Paladin chase. This is going to give Kerbin a lot of distance to work with here. Interesting that you talked about the build. That Noed and Sloppy so much safer given the win condition of only needing 7 stages here, or indeed a 6 stage 3 fresh. Sen is comfortable to even take a pretty disadvantageous chase like the one currently starting onto Kerbin in order to get that box.
Kevin has been playing phenomenally well here though, but that's going to convert into a hit. Sen continuing to commit onto Kevin. We see he's stuck on this 4 lane. It's going to be quite challenging as he's getting those passive chains being attacked on him. This is actually a decent loop against the Cenobite. If Kevin can get control of the pallet, but he can't because he gets that one unfortunate chain. 1 gen being completed in the distance. Sen sees the survivors and he's going to know that the box is going to spawn at 11 next. We saw him check to that side of the map. So he's expecting the box to be over there. It's really, I'm curious to see whether he's going to go for it though, because it is going to be quite far away from where he's hooking Kevin.
I think here there's no real reason to go for the box, given that you already have the chain hunt. What you should do, you only go for it if Remnant gives you an opportunity to locate exactly where it spawned. Because realistically, all you really need is those 3 fresh hooks and the 6 stages. The whiff coming through onto Alexandre, some amazing ping there, and another miss on the chain. Sen maybe not quite as accurate as Irish, but playing so far a better macro, going for the win condition, and playing very safely here. As the box actually spawned towards 7, Sen deciding not to contest it and go for the fresh onto Alexandre.
Yeah, he's going to get that tag quite quickly. He might even be able to convert into a down very quickly as well, as we see Alexandre is stuck on this 4 lane. But Alexandre is going to make that rock tile, and if he pre-drops this pallet, I think that's going to be a little bit of a nightmare for Sen. I don't know if Sen's going to be able to play this loop very effectively. No, he's going to decide to kick it instead. So that actually pushes Alexandre to the edge map where he dies. So very correct decision in kicking that. We do have a Z-wall, so if Alex goes crazy, he could survive a little bit on the Z-wall.
What is Remnant doing with the box here? Is Remnant 99ing it until Sen picks up before getting the solve? I'm not exactly sure why the box hasn't been solved yet. I think just maybe waiting, but this is a lot of potential gen time being wasted in order to go for this play to deny the teleport to Sen.
Maybe he was getting hit by those chains. Sometimes you get bugged and they hit you while you're...
though, surely.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd like to see that and find out later on what was going on there from his perspective. But Sen is just completely abandoning this hook, obviously, with his win condition. He just wants to cycle through his Scourge hooks. He's going and checking this bottom side of the map. He has found a Nia, I believe, which is Remnant, who's caught out in quite a bad position. No pallets at all at her disposal. Doing a good job trying to dodge these chains. Doesn't make the pallet, though, thanks to that impaling wire and the RNG chains that have spawned. Then choosing to commit still to Remnant, missing the chain once again. Remnant makes the shack, and I believe the pallet's still up.
Yeah, the pallet is still available. Most of the map, indeed, being still available here. Sen, just here, is going to try and go for his third fresh of the game onto Remnant to put himself in a stable position to get that 6-stage 3 fresh he's looking for. The chain does come through, and now I think this is just going to be a forced pre-drop from Remnant. Yeah, we see it there. The Vault comes through. Remnant playing this very well, but unfortunately, I don't think there's really much option to do anything after this chain lands.
Yeah, this is definitely a down right here. Oh, actually, Remnant got really lucky with that impaling wire. But that being said, Sen is going to be getting the down, his third fresh hook of the trial, and his third pain resonance, assuming we have a hook we can employ it on. We see that Gen at 6 has now been completed, and we're going to get the third fresh hook, which means that Quina is our final fresh hook of the game. If Sen were to locate Quina, hook him, and force death on him, that would be a very decisive victory for Ruthless Raccoons.
That is correct. Alternatively, if Sem were able to get a second stage onto Remnant, Kervin, or Alexandre, and then get that fresh, or even not get that fresh, and then get a kill on anyone else, he would still be in a winning position. There are many routes and many avenues for Sen to win this game, and he knows it. Just going to play, I think, safe here. Try and get the second stage onto Remnant, and then go for Quina or Alexandre to get the set win, and go for maybe a 6-stage 3 fresh that way, I think.
Absolutely, and Nowhere does give you a lot of options. Having that in your back pocket gives you a lot more ways to acquire that result. We don't actually have anyone on that 11 gen, so Sen was chaining and didn't manage to spot a survivor. He is quite far from the hook right now, but I don't... Wow, we actually see a survivor going in for the save. It's going to be Kevin who's going to be taking the tag right now, and Sen probably wants to commit to Kevin to try and get that down. Actually catches Remnant out in a weaker position, and BT is going to be run out any second, so Sen can commit. He has the pallet, but he has a lot of impaling wire chains being generated, and Sen is going to hit a chain now. This should be the death of Remnant unless something crazy happens here. So Remnant's going to go down, and Sen's going to get that second hook onto Remnant, which puts him one step closer to acquiring this win condition.
Absolutely here. All that Sen realistically needs after this stage onto Remnant is to now get a camp out on any other survivor. It does not have to be his fresh. It can be anyone here. You can go for Alexandre, Quina, or Kervin. As long as you're getting the kill completely after this stage on Remnant, you're going to be getting that 6-stage 3 fresh that you need. So I imagine what Sen will do here is probably look for Kervin, the injured player, as the easiest chase. And if you can't find them, you then go for Quina, your pain res, and try and get the 6 stages you need with the no one escapes death.
Yes, Sen is now kind of rotating between this shallow 11, or I guess you'd say 12 gen, and the hook, trying to force death while regressing that gen, which is a nice play considering that that gen has a lot of pressure. We saw that one of the survivors, I think it was Alexandre, solved the box on the bottom side of the map. Sen can probably get a little bit closer to Remnant now, considering the anti-camp would be quite low. No, actually the save coming in, and that is Quina, who's our final fresh survivor. The survivors are going to have to do whatever they can to protect Quina, as a single hook on this survivor, I believe, gets the win, or definitely a second stage will get the win for Sen.
Yeah, he'll need the second stage here.
Doesn't make the pallet because of ping, unfortunately. Now Sen just needs to kick this pallet, zoning him edge map, and this should be a very free down.
Yeah, I don't think Sen even needs to kick it here. This chain should seal the deal here. The hit take attempt comes through, but is unfortunately too late there. Kervin trying to deny it, and this will be the 5th stage and the 4th fresh of the trial. Any other hooks after Quina goes onto this hook, which I think will be odd 4 here, will be the game and the set and the match for our Ruthless Raccoons here on the Wreckage Yard.
That being said, there was no pain res there, so the survivors might be able to still get a good result with a few outs. We've found Kevin running around the shack, dodging the chains, unfortunately getting hit. Sen going to be getting a tag from that. Doing really good at being able to get his hits after hitting the chains. Tagging Kevin, who's going to hold W. Doesn't have many pallets here. I think he might have a pallet 10. Wow, very creative chain there. Unfortunately, barely misses. And Sen just commits here because he doesn't have any reason not to be honest. All he needs is that extra stage. And he's located Kevin actually being body blocked by Alexandre right now.
We see Kervin trying to get towards the bottom side here. With another chain miss, this is exactly what he needs to get a bit more distance, but I don't think there's anything left to work with. There's one more pallet, and the survivors only have one hit take available from Alexandre to give to Kervin here. Yeah, unfortunately, with the down coming through, we're going to have to see some sort of pallet save attempt, because if it doesn't come through, that is going to be Resurrection knocked out of the tournament, and I think that's what we're going to be seeing here. this is going to be the 6th stage and the 4th Freshhook of the trial, giving the win to Ruthless Raccoons despite an amazing and fantastic fight from Resurrection, and it's been a joy to watch both of these teams progress in the tournament thus far.
Yeah, absolutely. Big shout out to Ruthless Raccoons. They've been playing good both on Killer and Survivor tonight. But also shout out to Resurrection, who have not been letting them, get the better of them, and they have been putting up a fight absolutely all night, playing their macro really effectively. One thing I really like about this team is these 4 survivors, particularly this roster, seem to be very comfortable in playing with each other and knowing what they need to do as a team. You don't see them make mistakes very often in terms of running into each other's way or not being ready when the other survivors need them. So it does seem that they're very well coordinated, which I like to see. Unfortunately, there is ping that also plays a part and makes the chasers a little bit weaker. And the same goes for the survivors on Ruthless Raccoons when they're playing against these SEA kills. But yeah, Sen's going to now get that hook onto Quinner and confirm his 8 stage result with 4 fresh survivors. A very respectable result on Cenobite on the Wrecker's Yard. And that's going to be, like you said, Resurrection eliminated from the trial. So we're going to be moving towards an intermission shortly. And next up, we'll be seeing Silence versus Catcher. Do you have any expectations for that game at all, Doug, or are you excited to watch it?
The thing I'm most excited for is that we're finally seeing Catjam get some of the sets that they're generally more well known for being comfortable on and familiar on, like the Plague set and the Cenobite Tiebreaker. The Spirit set is going to be maybe a little bit more interesting, but we've seen Catjam play that set recently. As for Silence, they're coming into this with a huge amount of momentum after narrowly losing to Source in the winners bracket and having a great win over Inertia in their first week 2 game there. So both of these are going to be incredibly exciting teams to watch going forward, no matter who wins this set. Seabass, I believe you will be playing for Silence, so it's going to be exciting to have the chance to cast you live in action this next game, and I'm wishing you the best of luck against Catjam going forward. So guys, we are going to be going into a short break. Congratulations to Ruthless Raccoons for making our top 4, and as for Resurrection, it's been a pleasure to watch you play, and we hope to see you guys in the next event. We will be back shortly.